Hi, my name is Tara Walrod, and this is my Module 5, Understanding My Community. I'm going to look at the Blue Valley School District, specifically Sunrise Point Elementary. Looking at Blue Valley, we are made up of 3 different cities, Overland Park, Leawood, and Stillwell, and it's about 91 square miles. We have 21 elementary schools, 9 middle schools, and 5 high schools. An interesting fact is that for 40 straight years, we've increased enrollment. Some years as low as 50, other years as big as 500. We have this very much high academic standards attitude all the time. Rigor is the most important thing. Our biggest impact comes from high income levels and having to always remain innovative. Families and community are knowledgeable, involved, and they ask a lot of questions. So communication is critical when it comes to our community. And then change is really, most of the time, looked at as innovation. So they really appreciate change, unless it has to do with school boundaries, and then it becomes more of a problem. We opened in 2006, and our feeder system is actually the original Blue Valley High School, so there's some real deep traditions there, and they're really involved in coming over and helping at our elementary school and different things like that, so that feeder system piece is real important. We've had some interesting crises that unfortunately have taken place at our school. We've had 2 fires that have burnt down our playground both times. We had an unexpected death of a student that hit our school really, really hard. And then most recently this week, we had a contract worker killed on our playground. And so those don't define us, but they are a part of the fabric of the school. As far as traditions, we have the 7 Days of Kindness, which is a really big deal because one of our families was involved in the Jewish Community Center shooting, and so that's come out of that. We have a huge carnival every year that brings in thousands and thousands of dollars to our school. We have a theme. This year our theme was adventure. And that is everywhere. Whenever theme we have for the year, it becomes the fabric of our school. It's everywhere. It's on the bulletin boards. It's outside. It's inside. It's in the community. It's everywhere. And then we do have some diversity because we have 2 center-based programs, an ESOL and an autism center-based program. And both of those have been there since we opened. And then we have tons of 5th grade traditions that have been in place since the beginning. And those are a really big deal too. And there we are with the 7 Days of Kindness with Blue Valley High. Knowing population characteristics. Well, in Blue Valley, K through 12, we have 22,183 students. That does not include any of our preschools. We do have 1,848 certified staff and 1,418 classified staff, 104 administrators. Percent of teachers with a master's degree or higher is 77%. We have a 97% graduation rate, and interesting, we have an average daily attendance rate of 96%. So going to school is really important in our school district. Parents, 89% have a college degree or higher, and the median income is $103,000. Now, I did find that from a couple of years ago. I would almost bet it's higher now. As far as for my school, K through 5, we had 411 students last year, 34 certified staff, 26 classified staff, 1 administrator. We have the 2 center-based programs, and I found, again, it was a couple years ago, the median household income was $75,000 for our boundary area, and the median home price was $237,000. I bet it's a lot higher now, just because the housing market is booming in that area. Knowing communication channels, well, school media is probably the biggest one, our website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. We do have a school remind app you can sign up for. And then we have Seesaw. All of our teachers use it. It's just the ways for our teachers to send home projects or different things our kids are doing to their specific parent. We have a superintendent YouTube channel, which you can keep up with what's going on in the district. And then because we are a metropolitan area, we have tons of local news stations, tons of local radio stations, Kansas City Star. And then we do have the Blue Valley magazine that goes out every semester and just talks about the happenings, big happenings in Blue Valley. Community groups, our biggest growing one is Stand Up Blue Valley. It is a group of families that have gotten together, and they are making a really big difference in Topeka and what's going on with funding and what's going on with our schools. So that's been probably our biggest new group. They come to things. They have signs everywhere. We also have tons of community groups. We have a lot of really large churches nearby, and so we have a lot of church groups. We have the Optimist Club. They do a lot with giving awards to our kids. We have neighborhood groups that are pretty tight. Our school is only made up of 6 neighborhoods, so those neighborhoods tend to be know each other pretty well. We have district groups you can get involved in, Human Relations Board, Diversity Board, Middle School Innovation Groups. Those are parents and non-parents, so those are people who are interested specifically in those areas and or have been recruited into those areas. We have parent groups, a PTO, of course. We also have some support groups that have just kind of developed from groups of families. We have parents with foster children, parents with students with special needs. We have some student groups, but because those student groups get together a lot and have a lot to do with each other, those parents are really close, or those groups of families are close, with choir, athletics, theater, scouts. And then we do have some staff member groups. We have 2 leadership groups. We have a social committee, and then we do have kind of a group that's developed of families who have children at the school. Knowing the leadership. It starts at the top with superintendent. We have 5 assistant superintendents and 7 Board of Education members. We have district office departments. For example, we have a communications department, special ed department, student services department. So lots of different people that are making decisions on those specific areas. We have 1 Sunrise Point administrator. We have a PTO, and then we have a PTO board. We have leadership teams, as I mentioned. So people could be on the nuts and bolts team, which is more detail-oriented, understanding dates or when we're going to do this or if we're going to do this again. But it's really based on specifics, so people interested in that. And then we also have a vision team, which is more for people who are interested in the long-term vision, professional development that we're doing, and where we're headed. I put counselor on there because when the administrator's out of the building, I typically am the one in charge. And then faculty with admin degrees would probably be next, which is interesting because I think actually they have a lot more of the leadership in the building than necessarily how long you've been there. A lot of people haven't been there very long, but they have a lot to say on what we're doing because of their experience and their education. Knowing community leaders' characteristics. Some just interesting facts is that the superintendent was new the last couple of years, so I think that brings a different perspective just because he's kind of an outsider coming in and changing the way we're doing things. It's really changed the whole district leadership focus. It's now more whole child, social emotional learning, innovation, mental health right now is a priority. When you look at our PTO board, I think it's an interesting group of people because it meets during the school day. So it's primarily made up of stay-at-home moms, with the exception of the treasurer. She is actually an actual accountant, but everybody else is actually a stay-at-home mom. So that just gives a little different perspective for some of those community leaders. And then as far as leadership teams, like I mentioned, those are new this past year. And so separating those into people who are interested in vision or goals or big picture items definitely make a difference. I would also just say, I mentioned that we have a lot of church groups and different groups like that. They bring some different perspectives. But I will say that the school really, they are very supportive of the school. Knowing economic conditions. Again, we have high property value and it continues to rise. We were named Money Magazine's top place to live in 2014. We have over 7,000 businesses, so that's a definite perspective that we have because we have a lot of parents that work for these different places. We do receive school, state, and local funding. We do charge school fees, $115 per student per year for elementary. We do receive a lot of PTO contributions. A lot of PTO contributions. And if we have a specific project, they're really good at raising money for us. We have the Blue Valley Education Foundation. They give grants to schools every year. I believe our school got almost $20,000 in grants this year. So that's a huge economic boost for our school. And then we do rent out building space. Knowing political structure, we do receive state funding, as I mentioned. So there are certain requirements I know with that. However, we are one of 6 districts in the state that are part of what's called the Innovative Schools Coalition. And it does waive certain requirements. For instance, it waives that we have to have teachers, that we can hire teachers that aren't licensed. And that's definitely caused some different thoughts within the district. As far as our NEA has not been very happy about this. But I would say that the reason for that is that we have a big career center and they want to have nurses in there teaching about nursing, or they want to have graphic design artists in there teaching about graphic design, which is the real purpose. We do have tax exempt status. We do have reserve funds, although not as much as we used to. We did not receive raises for 3 years as staff members. However, we didn't have to let go very many people because of that. So keeping jobs was definitely a priority. And as I mentioned, Stand Up Blue Valley, the community follows them. It affects voting. I can't even tell you how many people went to their website to decide who to vote for, and because of that have really changed who our lawmakers are and who our representatives are. Our last senator and representative both were voted out because of school funding. Social tensions, definitely probably the one that's the biggest. It's based on socioeconomic. Our school does have an ESOL population, and it's interesting because only 2 of the 50 students in the program actually live in our boundaries. So that definitely creates a little tension because we only have 6 neighborhoods, and they're not from those 6 neighborhoods, so all the kids do know that. They have a lot of friends, but it creates a little bit of problem with them being able to have play dates or be as involved. Power seems really to relate to money and sports. I would say those are 2 big things, and that's just because of social class competition. Some extra sources. The school board minutes are available online. PTO social media. Chamber of Commerce has a great website full of things going on in Blue Valley. Community surveys are available on the website, and our school directory. Power structures. It starts with the superintendent and the school board. With highly educated and wealthy families, they do tend to call them if they need something or want something. And sometimes it's a small something, like they're not happy with the teacher that they got, and sometimes it's much, much bigger with some technology or something like that. So that's definitely something that happens in our district. Something else interesting is that parents often bring advocates or attorneys when they're meeting with us, whether it be for an IEP meeting or whether it be for even just a meeting. That seems to be something that a lot of parents do. Knowing multicultural issues, we are almost 74% Caucasian white. And then diversity is a priority for our school district. But teachers really are becoming ESOL certified, and they want to help these kids, and so I think that's a big deal. Our school pays for that. I think probably the biggest issues is language and trust issues. We do have interpreters and materials available. We do the different customs on the announcements of our kids, but that's definitely something that's an issue. Some other issues is sports, because our kids miss school a lot. We have 2 girls that are really high up in gymnastics that miss every afternoon to go to their gymnastics class. And then we do have a school handbook that does include a dress code, conduct, stuff like that. Again, power structure, school board, superintendent, assistant superintendent. I think we're very financially fiscal because keeping jobs is a priority, as I mentioned. Community interest is of high importance. Community relations board, I think it's a proactive approach. I have been to some of those meetings, and they include diverse backgrounds, different community members, and then, again, Stand Up Blue Valley. We did measure public opinion. We had a customer assessment survey. It did come out really high, 91% of our district. They gave us an A or a B, and they did publish the results. And then we did give a middle school parent survey recently because of the changes we're going to make for innovating our middle school next year. The customer assessment methodology, it was a 10-minute phone interview, which I think is awesome in comparison to just an electronic one. And then parents and non-parents were included. It was a random selection. We did have a middle school survey. As I mentioned, it was electronic, as most of our surveys are. And then we do an in-person one whenever we get a new administrator. They do invite patrons in to come into the school and get to give input on what kind of administrator they would like and why. And they do actually interview those people. So I think that's a different way we do things. Typically, though, they are electronic surveys. Thanks so much.